So what's up, guys? Today is another chip song tutorial, like a chiptune song tutorial, except this one is a little bit different. Last time I showed you how to make a good 8-bit one. This time I'm gonna go in a different direction. So I'm pretty sure everyone at this point likes the Super Nintendo, how all that sounded, you know, and I like it too. At least if you have a good music taste and you like it. So basically the Super Nintendo had a very distinct sound, and that 16-bit kind of the way those songs were made, it's very distinct, and you can very well tell if it was in that style or not. So first, I'm always gonna say this, but I'm always gonna start out with percut. But I'm always gonna start. No, no. This time I'm gonna start out with one of the main things you need, the orchestra hit. Now you might be wondering, why the hell is the orchestra hit so needed? Well, first of all, it actually is going to be basically the main melody to the song. However, the thing that actually overtakes it is the backup melody. It's a very weird kind of style that the Super Nintendo uses, and that's what we're trying to replicate here for a good sounding kind of 16-bit chip like a chiptune song. So let me play what I did for this song, the Almighty Holy Chip. You might have heard of it before. I posted it at one point. Um. Anyways, here we go. So basically, that may sound very empty, but that's just because that's the main part of the song. So what you're gonna want to do is do something like that. You're gonna want to have like an orchestra hit type thing. You'll want the orchestra hit there. If that's the style you're going for. Next, you'll want to make something that harmonizes with it. Me personally, I like to use the Wario Land 4 brass sample, but you can use whatever you want that sounds like it's in the style. Here's how I did it. Um, Now, let me just tell you, sometimes samples are buggy, so this may not sound right sometimes. Um, this sample in particular is the only sample I've noticed so far that is actually buggy. So, if you are trying to make a song with this sample, just be warned there is no way to fix said bug, and that is just a sample problem, and just fucking deal with it, honestly. So that's like the backing melody. Sorry for swearing back there. I just get a little ahead of myself. And so now, if you pair those together, they should harmonize if you did them right. And like the other instruments should be able to hide the bugs with that thing just well enough so that they're not actually noticeable too well. Anyways, here you go. Now it's a personal preference for me, but I like to start out very bombastic with what I do here. But a lot of the Super Nintendo songs oftentimes started out with like a very simple little just one note melody at the end, and then they got into the whole thing. At least that's what I remember from Super Mario World. But this is very Super Metroid type style here because that's one of the main Super Nintendo games I played. I take a lot of my music inspiration from that game because its soundtrack is actually just amazing. Which is why I use the orchestra hit a lot. I try to replicate that sound. I do not know where that chorus thing is though, so I'm gonna try and find that sample. Um, anyways, so now next up is the percussion of the song. This is one of the most important elements because those are going to be the only melodies he'll use, at least for this kind of song. You can do whatever you want with that, but you don't have to use only those two melodies. That's what I did here. But first off, you'll want to make the kick track. So basically, you'll want to have it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. There's nothing really too. It's very basic because it's going to be in the background, but it's going to have that kick to it, which gives it its name. That actually very much amplifies the song a lot. Anyways, so here you go. Now I'm wondering, what the hell is with that sound? Well, here's the thing. To make this song sound more like it's 16-bit, you add just a normal bit crush setting here. Like, there's nothing changed about this, just the normal bit crush setting, and it sounds perfectly fine. And next up, what you want to do is you want to add the snare. The only effect you really should have on it is the bit crush and full fade, and the transition should be normal. The transition should be normal for all of these, with the full fade and all that. And for the kick, you'll want some reverb too. And put it together, it sounds like that. Next, you'll want to add the timpani. This is what I did for it. As normal with the percussion, just add the bit crush. However, this is the bit crush I used here. And you don't even have to add the timpani if you want to keep it just the snare and the kick, then that's fine. One of the main things you'll want to notice here is that don't use any kind of rock sounding. Like, when it comes down to it, what you want is you want your snare to sound like it's a concert snare, not like it's a rock snare or a jazz snare. You'll want to use rolls sometimes, and you want it to sound much more concert than rock, like this. Instead of being like with rock snares, it's mainly just the one hit, and the kick kind of drives it a little bit more. Um, it's like just one hit, you know what I mean? And with jazz, it's much more funky than the song needs to be. So what you'll want is this kind of thing where it feels like each instrument is a separate being and it's not just one person on a drum set, but moreover, multiple different people on different instruments, like how it is in concert bands, because I'm in one myself. And timpani, you don't even have to add this, but I added this for the feel. It also helps the snare sound less like uh, it also helps add reverb to the snare. This is why I didn't add reverb here, because for some reason the timpani just actually helps the snare like this. Like, that's with it. The snare doesn't sound as good, right? And one of the main things you want to do with the timpani is most of the time, most people just have two timpanis out for the most part. That's from what I've seen. Now, some songs will go more complicated, but for a song like this, you'll want to use only two pitches like this. So this pitch and this pitch. These are the two. These are some very good pitches. C3 and E. Those are some very good pitches. I like those. But you can use whichever ones you want. Just don't go too low, or else like if you go too low on the note scale samples, then it just doesn't sound very good. So just keep it real like that. Now, if you put it all together, the percussion and the melodies, this is what it sounds like. Now, next up, what you're going to want to do is, after you had that entire, first sequence, you'll want the percussion only section. This should only last 2 bars. It shouldn't be a major section. And this is, just the percussion solo right here. and then next, right after, you go right back into this. But here's what you should change. Instead of having the normal 1 2 1 2, where it follows with the main melody and the backing melody follows, what you want to do is first, with the backing melody, just have it keep doing its long, dragged out note through both of these, but don't change these 1 2 1 2. The channels 1 2 1 2, but then you'll just want this to be on the first channel for 2 bars, and then for the next 2 bars, what you want is for it to keep doing this. So like this. So the transitions out like this. So it goes to percussion section, and boom, like that. You'll notice the difference. Now you want another percussion section, but you include the main melody only. So let me just transition into that real quick. Oh, no. And now here's where it gets very confusing, because this part is now it may seem very counterintuitive not to have the rest of the percussion section here. Let me look at this. But it actually helps bridge the song over to the next part. Every part of the song should be bridged over by a percussion section or a section where it's slightly more empty than the next to bridge you into every good all these good songs have like basically almost 3 parts to them if they're short like this. Sometimes 4, sometimes 5 parts. But each part is normally separated like this. And at least for me. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to keep it going. But there's a difference. You'll want to transition into the snare. 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. It'll just keep going like this. And then all of a sudden, like it'll just do that. And then we'll get to the end game part of the song. But first we need to snare transition. Yeah, what you'll want is for the snare to transition well. So basically, what I do is if the first snare notes are like this, these are the snare notes you'll want. But if these are if these are in sixteenths like this, so this uses eighths because this starts with eighths, so it's because this is a good transition. But say if this were to start with 16th notes like this, then you'd want a 16th note transition at least at the end of this, like this, like this. You'd at least like that kind of transition. But that's not what we're doing. So I'm just gonna restore that. I'm gonna restore the rest of the song. And now here's the end part. This is where you just want to go ahead and go very simple with it. And this is one of the most important parts. This one makes probably the second biggest impact in the whole song besides the beginning and the middle. The middle makes the least impact in the song, I'd say. But maybe I'm just not thinking right now. But anyways, so this is what you want it to sound like if this is the kind of song you're doing. And then after that whole thing where there are no changes here, different bars, you'll just want the main melody to do this. See that? Now, I'm not saying your song has to sound like this, just like the 8-bit chiptune one. Your song doesn't have to sound like this. I'm just using this as a tutorial song because I like it, and it's a good song. It works. So Alright, now onto the tutorial. Not tutorial, onto the song. Anyways, that's all. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and yeah, I will see you later.